Huh? Hi, it's Nandi, and this is the introductory video to my channel, Vibrant Authentic Living. So I thought I'd just walk you through my journey from the teenage Nandi who started out refusing to eat meat, not really knowing any details about it. I honestly don't remember reading anything, or I certainly didn't have anybody around me who was living that lifestyle. Everybody in my house pretty much were ardent meat eaters to the core, except for, well, my grandma, she ate meat but she didn't like it, and she would have her steamed veggies and so on, but certainly did not declare herself a vegetarian. And I remember when I was 13, it's as if it was an inborn thing. That's really how I look at most of these lifestyle choices that I have made in this dispensation. Seem like I came already preloaded with that, because it did not take any prompting. It was very intuitive, I was very convinced. So there was nobody telling me anything other than that. I was not open to anything other than that. It's like I just knew what I wanted to do, what I needed to do, and just went ahead and did it. And I was pretty young, comparatively young. So I would come home in the evenings and come home from school, and I would be forced to eat what the family was eating, what the rest of the family members were eating. I refused. I remember I used to scrape my dinner into bags under the table, or give my dinner to my older brother, or when it was time for dinner, I would go somewhere, go into the bathroom, go hide somewhere to avoid being seen, so that they wouldn't realize that I wasn't eating. And because of that, I lost a lot of weight. I was skinny. I was very skinny. As a 13, 14, 15-year-old, very skinny. And my relatives would have real, genuine concerns about my health, because I would take my lunch money and I would buy vegetarian stuff, canned beans, or I would buy greens to blend, borrow my auntie's blender, and I would make callaloo juice and so on. And I just insisted that I did not want any meat to eat, and that was that. So that's the beginning of my journey. That's I think the first step in this journey towards a vibrant, authentic living. Yeah, when I was 13 and refused to eat meat. And then eventually my family came around, and I guess they realized that it did not make any sense for them to force me to do something that I did. It was like it was going against my core belief. Even as a child, a teenager, it was going against my core beliefs. And after a while, they just stopped forcing me, and they started trying to accommodate me. So they would, steam cabbage or callaloo or ackee or some other plant-based food, while, in addition to maybe the yams, the rice that everybody else would have. So basically they just replaced the meat, still give me the sides, and give me some steamed veggies and so on. However, there were a few things that I still liked to eat. Like I would like to eat sausages. I remember I liked sausages, Vienna sausages, and I still had cheese. I would still eat biscuits and so on. I know that would have milk in it, lots of sugar and so on. So it's not like I was having this perfect diet, by no means. And I still liked fish too. I still enjoyed eating fish. Still have some fish every now and again, even now. right? But pretty much maintained, apart from those things, pretty much maintained a vegetarian lifestyle from my teenage years all the way up, and improving each time. Another thing, another aspect of my lifestyle which I started as a teenager was fasting. I don't remember which literature I read or who I heard talking. Again, much of this was intuitive, but at about 17 I started gaining interest in fasting, and 17, 18 thereabouts I tried my first fast. I tried to go for a day. I actually did go for much of the day. I went from morning to the evening, and I remember it was about 8 o'clock in the night, and I just had this immense hunger, and I felt so desperate to eat. And I was living in Red Hills at the time, same place in Jamaica here, but up in the hills where I grew up. And I remember I went to my cousin and I said to her, follow me outside, because at the time we had two kitchens, one outside and one attached to the house. At the time, I think the one outside was the one being used. So I said to her, follow me outside, and we had to get a bottle torch to go into the outside kitchen, and she followed me, and I made some fried dumplings. Now that is probably one of the worst things you could eat following a fast, because you know that's really heavy on the stomach. But you know, I was just so hungry, so famished, and I fried the dumplings, and I remember I ate them. I just dug into them. And then afterwards, you know, you feel so guilty, you feel like a failure, you feel just so disappointed in yourself. And but I kept trying. So over the years I have gained a whole lot of experience in fasting, to the point where now it's nothing for me to go many days without fasting. Whenever I'm fasting, I'll just snap into it just like that. I'll start from the night before and just don't eat for whatever period of time. The longest fast I've gone on is 21 days, and that was the coconut water fast. I have been on the pure water fast, the spring water fast. I think the longest was 16 days. 16 days on just spring water, 21 days on coconut water. For the coconut water fast, I do that typically every year around about my birthday. So every year around about April, I will do the 21-day coconut water fast. I've done that for about 4 years now. And twice I have tried the long-term pure water fast, just water alone, spring water. And on that I've gone 16 days. Right, so fasting is a fundamental part of my life. I firmly believe in fasting for longevity, fasting for health, to build your immunity, you know, for your glowing skin, for every aspect, as well as for spiritual reasons, for mental clarity, for spiritual grounding. I firmly believe in fasting, and what I want to do, what I have tried and want to maintain, so far I have not been able to maintain it, but I think that is the lifestyle I would want to have, is practicing intermittent fasting on a daily basis. So I went for a month in which I went on I think it was the 18-6 routine of intermittent fasting. So I fasted for 18 hours and then I ate for 6 hours. So I would eat at 12 noon and have my last meal at 6. So that's a 6-hour feeding window and 18 hours fasting. I think that's either that or the 24 routine, 20 hours fasting, 4 hours feeding window would be the one that I would prefer as a sustainable, long-term way of going about things. I think that is the ideal plan for just giving your body a physiological rest and allowing it to process what has already been eaten, and allowing it to use energy for other things that it needs to do, like brain power, thinking processes, cleansing processes within the entire body, the whole system. So when you clog the system and you keep eating, you don't give your body any chance to rest and recuperate from the meal or meals gone by, years of meals gone by unprocessed. You don't take a break, you don't give your body a time to process that, to put that away and to clean out what needs to be cleaned out. So it piles up, and then you get sluggish, you get, you don't have the energy, the vitality, your skin gets dull, your hair gets dull, your thinking gets dull, you're angry, you're agitated, you're miserable. All of these are affected. All of these can be traced back to diet, in my opinion, to food, or the overuse of food and the eating of wrong foods, what I would call wrong foods. Now, my ideal diet is a raw food diet. I've never been able to sustain it. It's difficult to sustain in this time, even living in the tropics as I do. I live in Jamaica, where we have abundant fruits, different seasons, fruits of different seasons throughout the year. Some of them relatively cheap depending on which fruit, but some of them quite expensive. And so it is not a diet that is easy for most persons to maintain, and I have tried and I've gone like a couple weeks, just raw food, just fruits, nuts, and so on. But it's difficult. It's difficult in terms of cost. It's also difficult in terms of convenience, because it would mean you would have to go to the farmer's market or to the food van or to the produce section of the supermarket quite often, because these things are perishable and they are bulky too. They are bulky, and you run through them pretty fast, and you have to replace. And so there's not just the cost of the item, but the cost of transporting them, the convenience of having to go that many times. Because when you eat other things, you can go to the supermarket once a week, once every 2 weeks, and you stock away your cans and your bags, and you put it whatever needs to go in the freezer, and you don't really have to go again until another 2 weeks or even a month. Some people buy for the month and they don't have to go back for the month. Now, you trying to maintain a raw food diet, you pretty much have to be on the road every day or every 2 days to replenish, to get your fresh fruits and veggies, if you're having veggies. You really have, because many of these things, not even in the fridge, they will last, right? So there is that. There are those factors, as well as we are so conditioned to think that we just cannot be sustained on fruits. So, and then we allow others around us, even we who are, pretty much convinced that this is the way to go, but we allow others. And then you might have children, and you feel pressured because people telling you feed, this is all you're giving the children, they're not going to flourish, they're not going to thrive, they're going to whatever. So there are all of those pressures. If you don't have a spouse who shares your views on these things, it can be extremely difficult too, because especially if you are the one who has to be preparing the meals, and you have to be preparing this for your spouse and your children and this for you, and then you might be tempted to, as much as you have your convictions, you might be tempted. And you see this way of life, and I'll be doing more videos, about the struggles involved in trying to maintain this, what I would call this ideal diet, because sometimes it will lead you even to start doing some things that you would see someone who has an eating disorder do, like hiding stuff, or because you declare yourself as you're only eating this, and then for some reason you fall off it, and then you have to be hiding stuff and waiting for people to go to sleep for you to eat stuff. And it gets to that, it can get to that point, and I've been there. So I'm going to be telling you guys about all of those experiences of, the declaration, and then people are saying, oh, you're on a high horse, you're condescending, you're going on as if you're better than us, and then you can't maintain it for whatever reason, be it the cost, be it the temptation, the cravings, because when your body is cleansing, getting rid of the cooked food and the junk food, you go through crises that you really feel the urge to eat these things. And there are different theories about that. Theories, for example, that the microbiome, the bacteria in your gut, actually send messages to your brain that this is what they want. That particular microbiome of bacteria who are accustomed to eating the junk, they actually have power. There are theories like that. Or just the sheer fact that everybody else around you is eating the junk. The advertisements are pushing the junk. Inside your own house, persons are walking up and down with it, leaving it unattended. All these things. So the pressures are great. Sometimes you feel like it's you against the world, you're up against the world, and you might fall off the so-called high horse that everybody says you're on. And then you're left with, do I be honest and make another declaration to say, guys, I've fallen off. It's not that I no longer believe in this, but it's just difficult. Or you try to put up a pretense that you're maintaining this lifestyle when you're really not. So some persons actually go through the hiding of food, or eating while you're on the road, and then you come back in and put on this facade of purity, let's call it that. So it does get to those kind of places sometimes. So for me though, it's good when you can be honest. If you fall off, and you say why you fall off, and you understand that it's a journey, and it's not that your core beliefs were shaken, it's just that the pressures are great, and you might not be able to sustain it financially either, because it's difficult. And especially if you don't live in a place where for example, if I lived in a temperate land, if I lived in the US or Canada or parts of Europe, I don't think I would even want to maintain a raw food diet, because those fruits in those temperate lands for me are not appealing in the least. In the very least, they are not appealing. So for me to think I'm going to sustain myself on those, I would not enjoy that lifestyle. Being a raw foodist in a temperate country. In the tropics now, where the fruits are They're brilliant, they're tasty, you know, they're just so flavorful and just full of life and vibrance. Bring it, bring it, bring it, bring it. But even living in Jamaica here, where we have tons and tons and tons of fruits. Every season you have different fruits, and some of them are pretty cheap, you know, by the dozen, depending. For example, some mangoes, you buy them by the dozen, they are pretty cheap. And then you have other kinds that one single one is very expensive. So it depends on the kind, and it depends on where to on the island you live. Like living in the country, you might have the trees, they're falling on the ground, you know, as opposed to living in the city where you have to get them. Either you go to the market, which might be miles away, or you have to resort to the supermarket. And we know that there are unscrupulous people everywhere, and some persons, they can't wait for the fruit to ripe properly. They will pick the fruit half ripe and then put chemicals on it to try and ripen it. That kind of stuff happens even here in the tropics. And for me personally, I don't buy green fruit or half ripe fruit, right? So it has to be of a certain quality for me to have it. But sometimes it's just not available, and you just have to go with the next best thing. If you don't have a tree in your back, and then sometimes you even have a tree and people raid the tree, you don't even get the fruit. My neighbor my neighbor down the way has a mango tree. Mango is my favorite fruit, right? She has a mango tree, and just the other day it was loaded with like dozens of mangoes. And I was talking to her 2 days ago. She didn't taste one because people just passed and they didn't wait for the mangoes to ripe. They picked them half ripe. So you might have your tree and you might have certain standards, and you're saying you want the fruit to ripen by itself. You want to be able to enjoy that natural mellowness of the thing, and you're waiting on it, and somebody just come and pick it half ripe and they're gone with it because that they don't have that standard. For them, the half ripe one is the better one to eat. But I don't know how they would come by that, but I've heard people say that. So there are challenges all over, you know. There's challenge with the water quality. I try to get spring water from the Blue Mountains. There are 2 companies locally that bottle spring water from the Blue Mountains. Even then, it's a chance you're taking. I'm not there to see them bottling it from the spring. I'm taking a chance. I'm saying, okay, I am going to believe what you say, that this is pure spring water from the Blue Mountain, but I'm not there. I don't know. So sometimes I end up have to drink the tap water. I just do it because you have to get to a point where you tell yourself you just do the best you can, and when you can't, you just do the next best. And don't be too hard on yourself. Be gentle on yourself and understand that this is a process, right? This is a process. Another challenge I have was I love chocolates, right? So I love chocolate, and that was my weakness. Still kind of is my weakness, even though not so much, right? But they have a chocolate belly still. And there are certain restaurants that from time to time I will go. Not so much fast food, pretty much like local cooking, but it's still not to my standard. They will still use certain powdered seasoning, for example, still use certain oils that I wouldn't necessarily want to partake of. But I just like, every now and again, I just like to have that taste. So I'm nowhere near perfect in terms of maintaining my ideal, in terms of diet. But like I said, be gentle with yourself and understand that it is a process, and understand the challenges that exist in this very chaotic world, this world where most persons are moving so far away from the natural way of doing things, so far removed. It's like, as the lone ranger in all of this, trying to fight this, it can seem like a losing battle with all the chemicals around. You're trying to eat natural, and by the time you look, they spray the crops. The other day, someone invited me to come and pick some apples from his tree, and I was delighted because these are Otahiti apples, right? Red, but when they're really ripe, they're almost purple. Sometimes I call them black. When they're really ripe and nice, they look almost black to me. So whenever I go to the vendor, I say I want some of the black ones, and they're always saying to me, "Where you see black ones? It's not black," but I know what I'm talking about. So he had some of those on the tree, and I was so delighted. And then he was saying he sprayed the tree like not so long before I came. He sprayed the tree, and I was saying, why would you spray? You have your apple tree here in your yard. Why are you gonna spray the apple for what? And he was saying, well, some wasps are on the tree, and he wanted to get rid of the wasps, so he sprayed the tree. And I'm thinking, how is that? How does that affect the apples, though? It must affect the apples in some way. These are delicate, these are babies, fruits are babies. Yes, we know some of them, the plant does its best to shield them, but most of them, the fleshy part is the skin. They're delicate, they're babies, and then you expose them to these chemicals and mishandling, because the vendors themselves don't feel that there is much food value in the fruit. They sell them because they have them to sell, but that love, that care. You see, when I go to buy my fruits, and I'm coming back from the food van, I treat those fruits like babies. I will have the fruits in the bag, and I'm constantly checking, like when you have your baby in the car seat and you're driving and you're checking to make sure. That's how I check my fruits. And certain fruits, I don't even carry them in bags. They have to be in my hand. I don't carry papaya in bags. I don't carry nesberries in bags. They have to, sweet sour sop. I don't put them in bags. They have to be in my hands or in a basket or something, like a baby. Gently, and I'm always checking on them to make sure they're okay, like I would check on my child. And these vendors, you see, like yesterday, a couple days ago, I was I was in a taxi, passing a vendor, and he was selling apples, and some of the apples fell on the ground in kind of like a puddle was on the road, and nobody was looking. He was there, and he just pick it up and put it back on the stall. And I'm saying, no, somebody comes to buy apples. You're just gonna sell them the apple, and they don't know that the apple fell in the puddle. So there is this lack of regard for people, lack of regard for life, lack of regard for quality, lack of pride in what you're selling and what you're giving to your customer. All of those things are lost. The whole spirit of the thing. So, all of that we have to take into consideration. The whole spirit of the person who is handling the food that you're getting. Too, because they don't even want it for themselves. They're not going to eat it for themselves. They want the junk. They just want your money so they can go buy the junk. Right? But still, I'm glad that there are so many vendors still selling fruits. We have lots of fruit vendors here in Jamaica. I'm glad for that. That it's still available at least. Maybe not the best quality all the time, but at least it's still available. Alright, so this was my introductory video, just letting you know this is Nandi and this is what Nandi is about. You're going to be finding out lots more about me and my lifestyle, and hopefully you leave comments so that I can find out about you. So take care, and I'll see you in the next videos to come.